The kids from South Africa's letters are always beautifully written. They put a lot of pride and effort into the actual penmanship and into the decorating of their letters. And it brought my students' writing up a notch. They felt like, we need to do a good job here. We need to show them that we can do that too. And so that was a wonderful addition to the many benefits of the program. Swampscott is a community that's located about 15 miles north of Boston, right on the ocean, and it has approximately 14,000 people. Our school system is divided into elementary, middle, and high school, and the middle school has approximately 700 students. I am a geography teacher, and I wanted very much to have my students write to students in other countries. My reason for that was that I felt that they really didn't understand that there were real people living in other places. And the best way to make them realize that was through letter writing. And I attempted on my own to get letter writing started to no avail. It always fell through because of different obstacles that we encountered. However, on the internet, I discovered Opportunity Education, and from the moment I discovered it, they were supportive, and our letter writing took off and has developed tremendously. Okay, the letters finally did arrive. I have letters today. It's always very exciting when I walk in with an envelope with the letters. But the day that I would walk in with the letters, the word would spread through the halls. Mrs. Mackenzie has the letters are here. Other teachers of the other subjects would constantly say, wow, we knew the letters were in, the kids couldn't wait to get to social studies today. The students' reaction to the program was definitely the best part. Their enthusiasm was immediately visible, the excitement was tangible. And from there on, the program has developed with many other positive results. When we started the letter writing, it began, and the excitement made me realize what a valuable piece it was to my curriculum. So we continued it very enthusiastically. We talked about it all the time. So we've come up with some general examples of some of the things we've learned about culture. But now let's talk about some specifics that you found in your letters. One of the things that I think is interesting is looking at what kids want to do in their future. Because we talk about that in school all the time. Where are you headed? What are you aiming at? Now here's kids that live very far away from you. What are their dreams for the future? Does anybody have any mention of that in their letters? Caitlin?
My pen pal wants to be a social worker so she can help people with broken families and help children who are orphans.
Anyone else have another example of that? Ailish?
My pen pal said she wanted to be a scientist because there isn't many where she's from.
The students that first year had approximately 4 or 5 exchanges of letters. But it was one day in the spring that I received a phone call, and the phone call was from the U.S. consulate in Cape Town, South Africa, because they had Googled their local schools in South Africa to see what the schools were doing, and they came across an article from the Swampscott Reporter, and in that article it talked about our letter writing. And so they called to ask if we would be interested in video conferencing. And of course we were so excited that we jumped at the opportunity.
I'm going to tell you about our country, South Africa. And South Africa is a very populated country. It is in the south of Africa. Mandela became our first black president of South Africa, and since then we have had our democracy. Thank you.
The experience for the students has grown every single year. We start early in September, and instead of it being an isolated experience, it has now become an integral part of our curriculum. The students get to know their counterparts very early in the year, exchange letters. They often exchange small items back and forth and talk to each other, so that by the time we are video conferencing in May or June, the students actually feel that they've developed a relationship with these students.
My name is Siaka, and my surname is Makara, and my question is, how many learners in each class?
How many learners or students? In South Africa, they don't use the word student, they use the word learner.
My name is Jessica, And in a typical class, we have from like 20 to 24 students or learners.
It was fun to watch what the children were interested in, and one of the things that they asked about was weather. A student from Swampscott asked, what is the weather like over there now? Because of course we were going into spring and they were beginning their winter months. And the South African student who answered said, well, our winters are pretty cold and rainy. And I know the Swampscott kids were thinking, oh, that's not so bad. We get lots of snow and it's probably colder than it is for you. But then the South African students continued and said, no, you don't really understand. For us, cold and rainy means that our houses will flood. Our floors are made of dirt and they will be mud. And mothers can't put their babies down on the ground, and many people get sick because of all the flooding in their homes. And the Swampscott kids were taken back and really surprised with that response. One time when we came back from one of our video conferences, and we got back and came walking into the school, they were being very, very quiet. And the mothers had been there that morning from the PTO, and they had set up a table of lost and found, because during the year in a middle school, students lose jackets, they lose shoes, they lose boots. And a lot of very nice items were on this table. We were walking in very quietly, and we walked by that table. And the students stopped and they were looking, and one of my students said, I'm so ashamed of this. And when she said that, I thought to myself, she gets it. They're getting it. They're getting the message. And that felt really good. But I want to remind you, because all this year in World Geography, we have been talking about what culture means. And the letters are the perfect example for different things about culture. The surprising things that I've learned from the Sister School program are that it carried much more weight than I thought it would. It did become the focus of the World Geography curriculum, and that the students, even students you didn't think would like the idea of writing, were thrilled to write. I'm so happy I got involved in the Sister School program, because it brought fulfillment to me as a teacher, a lesson to my students that I could never have taught them just by talking or reading in a book, and hopefully benefits to both the kids in South Africa and the kids in Swampscott that can't be measured.